Welcome to Winefluence, your one-stop shop for exploring the rich world of wine, improving your wine knowledge, and, crucially, learning how to pick the perfect wine for you and your budget. I'm RJ, the wine guy. Happy tasting. So, guys, let's see what is behind door number 2 of the Laithwaite's 2025 wine advent calendar. Just going to open. Ooh. Oh. It looks like a bottle of white. What do we have? Muscle Pot Sauvignon Blanc. Now, I've heard of this. So it's obviously from New Zealand. So Marlborough is a wine producing region in New Zealand, famous for really good Sauvignon Blanc. So I'm very excited about this. It's triggering something in the back of my mind. Muscle Pot. Just having a quick look. 2023 vintage. Very interested to try this. Always love a good Sauvignon Blanc. I will chill it and I'll let you know how it is. Okay, guys, so now we're on to day 2 of the Naked Wine Advent Calendar. Let's go to see what is behind door number 2. Ooh, interesting. Malbec Cabernet Franc, always a good mix. So from South Africa, 2023. Smells faintly of cinnamon and spice like your slightly overcooked gingerbread. I'll have you know that my Okay, fair enough. My gingerbread can be sometimes overcooked. But I'm getting better. It's a process. Okay, so Raat's Angel Selection Malbec Cabernet Franc 2023. Exciting. That is exciting. Now, what's interesting is it says decant for 30 minutes, which I have a feeling it'll say for most of the reds. It's not... I'm not going to use a full decanter for this. I'm just going to literally pour it into the glass and let it be for 30 minutes, maybe swirl it around a little bit. That looks very interesting. And love the fact that I have one white, the Muscle Pot, a Sauvignon Blanc, and one red, bang, the Cabernet Franc Malbec blend from South Africa. Always good. Always happy to try, white and white, red and white, red, like whatever. But always nice to have a little bit of a difference. I will obviously start with the white and move on to the red. I'll let you know how it goes. Okay, guys, let's get to it. So, our first wine of today, and this comes from Laithwaite's Wine Advent Calendar, day 2, December the 2nd of Advent. And this is a cheeky, I can tell already without even putting my nose anywhere near it. This is a cheeky little Sauvignon Blanc. From New Zealand, from the very famous Marlborough region, which is where much of the Sauvignon Blanc in New Zealand is grown, and where a lot of famous top producers also grow their wine. So this is the Muscle Pot Sauvignon Blanc, as I said, Marlborough, New Zealand. It's a 2024 vintage. Now, generally speaking, Sauvignon Blanc, you like to drink quite young and youthful and fresh, and particularly from New Zealand, I would say, again, broadly speaking, that is kind of what you're looking for. So it doesn't matter that it's only a year old, doesn't really need a huge amount of aging. It's designed specifically to be drunk young and early. So it's priced at £13.99, but it's currently on offer at Laithwaite's for £9.74. Now, I would say, just from what I know about New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, that would probably put it toward the sort of, like a lot of the wines in this advent calendar is likely to be sort of mid-level table wine kind of bracket. I'd say it's probably on the cheaper end if it's £9.74 at the moment. So I think that's, without trying it, in principle, that might be a good deal. Obviously, we need to try it. But I'm just swirling to aerate it while I regale you with the story. So I've done a little bit of digging. So this is impressively Laithwaite's massive, huge wine retailer, best-selling Sauvignon Blanc. That is quite astounding, but particularly given how popular New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is, to find the best-selling one. I mean, there's got to be at least, it might not be like a direct correlation with quality, but there's got to be some level of quality to value ratio there. That is, in terms of the market achieving best selling for that level of a wine retailer. So it's grown by a guy called John, who's apparently, I don't know his surname, who's apparently 7 foot tall. I listen, guys. I'm 6 foot. Well, I'm 6 foot 2.5. I like to round up on good days, but I'm 6 foot 3. It's rare that I have to look up when someone is approaching. So John being 7 foot, that's like he's clearly New Zealand's answer to the Jolly Green Giant. But apparently, according to Laithwaite's, he sells most of his grapes every year to a high-end producer from the region. They cannot disclose who it is. A few names spring to mind, but I wonder, knowing Marlborough, whether that is the infamous and rightly so fantastic Cloudy Bay. I don't know. Not an investigative journalist, but just me thinks putting it out there, it could be that, right? So apparently he does hold some grapes back every year to make this more sort of entry, sort of table wine level Sauvignon Blanc. Obviously, Cloudy Bay is quite expensive. It's around sort of, depending on where you shop, like £22 to £28 a bottle. So like let's call it $35 to $45 a bottle. And it is, I would say, extremely good Sauvignon Blanc. So I'm interested if this is at least within the, kind of the a top producer in the region buys his grapes. Obviously you have to do other things to grapes. It's about the expertise, it's about the process. But if the raw product, the raw kind of grape juice is this good, I'm expecting a fair amount despite the fairly modest price tag. So, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, just before we taste, it's very much, in my experience, New World charm, in a bottle. It's usually full throttle, peachy, citrusy, and reassuringly is both mouth and trousers, right? Like normally it's one or the other. Um, that's a whole different video. But anyway, it's not hard to see why it's beloved over the world. It really does what it says on the tin, but there is a sort of cheeky charm that it has as well. It has a certain level of naive depth to it, which is hard to kind of describe beyond that, but I shall endeavour to. So let's give this cheeky little punter an examination, exploration, shall we? So let's look at the colour. So listen, guys, that is a sort of pale green straw color, if ever I'd seen it. There's not much gold to it. You can actually see sometimes like the wine is consistently the same color everywhere. There used to be a thing where people would like tilt the rim and go, "Oh, the core is not quite as core is deeper than the rim." That's because you literally have more wine in the core when you're tilting it here. So it's like it's light refraction physics, right? But I would say this is a quite archetypally verdant green wine. Which I would expect actually from a Sauvignon Blanc, particularly a youthful one from the Marlborough region, maybe less so in certain parts of France. Um, but yeah, it looks interesting. And now, what I'm very interested in, the nose, the scent. I've not smelled it, so I'm just going to go completely first impressions, rough and ready. Okay, guys, this is archetypal Sauvignon Blanc from the Marlborough region. And do you know how I can tell that? I will explain the notes in a minute. You know how there is scent memory, one of the reasons I love wine so much. Um, I am 19 years old, so half the age I am now. Um, and I'm sitting in a classroom, London School of Economics, when I'm smelling this. And I'm on my gap year, so in between A levels and university, and I'm on a wine tasting course that they happen to be running at the university using their rooms. It wasn't run by the university. And I am smelling or scenting for the first time in my life a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. That is how archetypal this is, that after nearly 20 years, I remember that. How long did that take? A few seconds? Now, that's got something going for it. I'm beginning to see why this might be a bestseller. Okay, right. Taking a second gander, and I'll start to give you some of the aromas. It's immediately, there's a fruit to it. It's peachy, but there's something else. I'm getting like cantaloupe melon. You know, kind of that slightly kind of yellowy greener melon when you slice it open and you see the seeds and there's that kind of instant smell. Maybe you have it for dessert, maybe you have it on a summer's day, maybe you have it for breakfast. There's that kind of like it starts with that and it develops into a slightly unripe orange peach. If you remember from yesterday's wine, I had a white wine called Picpoul de Pinet, and that had a peachy quality too, but that was much more a fully developed, ripe, jammy kind of peach. This is a sort of still developing peach. You know, kind of like when you buy a peach from the supermarket and you bite into it and it's a little bit tartar. Maybe it's started to soften, but it's not quite there, but it's still pleasant. Now, moving down beneath the fruit, what else is there? I'm trying to identify it. There's a salinity to it. There's a sense of almost like coastline to it. You know, when you're near the sea and you have that kind of very fresh, sort of salty sea air. And there's something, I don't want to get this wrong, just bear with me. There's something floral, but it's very light. It's a white flower. I want to say there's a hint of frangipani. There's a hint of this kind of slightly almondy frangipani flower combined with the as yet not fully ripe orange peach and that beautiful, almost sweet vegetal cantaloupe melon with the sort of salinity and the sea air. And of course, on the finish, a hint of citrus. Again, I'd say more of a lime than a lemon rind. Very nice. Okay, so that has immense bouquet, and it's really apparent. Like if it was some Sauvignon Blanc, isn't that apparent on the nose? I had a Sancerre, which is a French Sauvignon Blanc, one of the varieties they do, um, a few weeks ago, and on the palate it was incredible, but it didn't give. It was quite shy on the nose. This is not. This is characteristically New World. Like I'm up for a Barney, and we're going there. Okay, guys, so that's the nose. Let's see what the palate is like. Let's see what the follow through is like. So immediately, it's light bodied, very crisp. The acidity is high, as you'd expect from New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. But if you recall to yesterday's tasting, the Picpoul de Pinet, that's meant to be like uber level of acidity. That had, in my view, my own experience, that had less acidity than this does, which is surprising. But that was a very interesting and unique wine. Um, I'm enjoying this. As I said, crisp, light, refreshing, light bodied. I'm going in for a second on the palate. Do you know what? This is very easy drinking. Again, I know I'm using that term, but you could easily have this on a summer's day. I'll come to vibes in a moment, but in terms of the palate, the melon is definitely following through. I'm getting some of that kind of as yet unripe, fully unripe plum. There's something else there as well. There's something herbaceous, something green that is on the palate that's not necessarily on the nose, and at least that I could initially detect. It's giving fern, like that scent that ferns emit. It tastes like that, and that's not altogether unpleasant at all. Actually, that's quite interesting. I enjoy it. It's good. Initial impression, going to be honest, obviously an archetypal Sauvignon Blanc from the region, obviously well priced. Is it by any stretch of the imagination the best Sauvignon Blanc, even from the region I've had? Absolutely not. But even when I compare it to, say, something comparably priced, so like kind of like the mid level that Villa Maria do, like a cellar selection or a private cellar. uh, or just some of the kind of smaller but slightly kind of more distinct producers of Sauvignon Blanc in the region do. I'd say I slightly prefer them. I think they have a little bit more depth. But I could be judging this harshly. I'm going to go in for a final sniff and a final taste. The nose is beautiful. The nose is delicate, and actually, I don't want to underrate this. The nose is perfectly balanced between those four elements. A lot of Sauvignon Blanc from New World, it's like, I'm hitting you with this, now I'm going to hit you with this. This is like four quadrants that are in perfect balance, and it is understated, despite being full. So that's quite a interesting balance. So I will give them that. Yeah. It's good Sauvignon Blanc. Absolutely worth it. I can see why this is a very good seller. I would buy this. Very good, easy drinking on a summer's day. Something I would pair this well with. Well, obviously it's called the Mussel Pod, and apparently it's named after John, the 7 foot Jolly Green Giant's favorite restaurant, which I assume is a seafood restaurant which sells mussels. And green lipid mussels are actually quite famous in the region, so I assume that would be great to have it with. But I would say any seafood, like anything that you're going to pair with sort of lime. If you have a cream sauce on it, like maybe you could have like a seafood Alfredo or something like that. The acidity would definitely cut through that. And it's beautiful. It's also something, like some wine, most wine is designed, I think, to be paired with food, and that's my view. But you can have wine on its own, and I think if you're going to, I think this particular spring summer's day would be absolutely fantastic. So really good. I've enjoyed that. In terms of vibes, she's cheeky, she's flirtatious, she's a little naive, but in an adorable, charming way, in a kind of like, oh honey, like got a bit to learn, but do you know what? I miss being that rambunctious. But also, I can see the potential, and there is a lot of like, there's a lot of depth to it. It's I tell you what, the vibe is she's precocious in the best possible way. And yeah, I enjoy it. Okay, guys, so we have wine two of the day, and this is this is the Naked Wine Advent Calendar, day two, 2nd of December, and this is a interesting wine, and it's called Rat's Angel Selection, and it's a blend of Malbec and Cabernet Franc, two distinct grape varieties, and it's a 2023 vintage. Now, 2023 is obviously only a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago as we're approaching 2026, but it's still obviously quite a youthful wine, which is interesting as both Malbec and Cabernet Franc often can be aged quite a long time, particularly Cabernet Franc. So I'm just putting it out there that we will discuss it in a bit, but like I'm not expecting this to be a fully developed wine. Unlike the one we've just tried, which is a Sauvignon Blanc, which is meant to be drunk very young, while there are certain styles and ways of making Malbec and Cabernet Franc more youthful in terms of their drinking, I would say that this might be a bottle that might benefit from some level of bottle aging. So on to the price point. You'll notice as ever I'm just swirling around just to aerate the wine. I have decanted it, well, I've put it in the glass for 30 minutes, but I'm just letting it kind of develop a little bit. So the price is £13.99 on the open market. If you're an angel investor, you notice that word that's come up again. So this will come up with a lot of the Naked Wines. So if you are a customer of Naked Wines and you choose to pay a certain amount into your account every month, a bit like it's not like a Christmas savings account, but it's like you pay in whatever you want to pay 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, whatever into the account, then you get a discount and you become one of their angels. So it's kind of code for angel investor. And this is not a startling discount. You get £2 off the bottle, so it's 11.99. To be honest, again, like most of the bottles, pitched at a as you'd expect, like a mid-table wine price. But there can be some stars, as we saw yesterday with the Picpoul de Pinet, which I keep going on about, I know, but I was very impressed. The Benjamin Darnaud Picpoul de Pinet, which was on the Naked Wine website for, I believe $11.99 for angel investors and $12.99 for those who aren't investors. As I said, I would have paid more than double for that wine. So, price alone is not always a gauge of quality. So the story did a bit more research. So this is made by a guy called Brewer Rats. I wish I could do the South African accent. It's a beautiful accent. I can't do it. I can do many an accent, but I cannot do a South African accent yet. Let's see. If I drink more wine, maybe I will be able to, but I'm not gonna. I'd have to drink quite a lot more wine, so we're not gonna get there today. But Robert Parker's Wine Advocate, which is an industry publication, well respected, recently described Brewer, the man who makes the wine, as quote unquote the man who makes some of South Africa's finest wines. And that's not something that an industry publication like that or a well-respected publication would hand out for no reason. And to back that up, so in the last year, there was a competition in South Africa, and eight of Brewer's wines received 5 stars in that competition. Now, receiving one bottle at 5 stars is an accomplishment. Eight. I mean, this man clearly has some level of technical skill and know-how, and they know what they're doing there. So having had a look on the Naked Wine website, 91% of 150 customers that had tried it liked it. Now, that is, if you compare that to, again, the Pic Pool de Pinet, that was like almost 10 times the amount of people that were surveyed, and it was like a 98% rating, so nowhere near as impressive as that. But just because people haven't tried something as much doesn't mean that if they continue to try it in the droves, they wouldn't also like it to a similar amount. So I would say that's still relatively impressive that you reach a 91% score. It's hard to please more than 9 in 10 people, right? Particularly those who self-select into buying from Naked Wines, which is like a smaller individual focus, slightly higher risk because you don't have all the established names kind of distributor, and you're spending your own money, putting your money where your mouth is, and investing every month. So I'm not suggesting that everyone who buys from Naked Wines is somehow some uber wine guru, but like compared to many of us, maybe they know a fair amount about what they're talking about. Maybe not compared to professionals, but who knows? So 91% of that is a pretty high score. And if I saw that on like a different website, maybe it wouldn't mean quite as much as on something a bit more self-selected like the Naked Wines website. So I'm expecting reasonably good things from this. So just to delve into the blend a little bit before we explore the wine per se, because I think it's good to know something of the context. So 2 grapes blended, Malbec, which I believe is the predominant blend here. So Malbec, originally a French grape, but traditionally very, very popular in Argentina. You'll hear a lot about Argentinian Malbec, but actually French Malbec, it's originally from France, really good, had a really good Chateau Mercuez the other day, absolutely cracking, 10 years old, beautiful. So Malbec is the thickest skin grape varietal, or a thick skin grape varietal, and it's traditionally known for dark, deep fruit, and it's the perfect partner for a nice juicy steak, right? And obviously South Africa is known also for really good quality, like grilling and steak and meat and that kind of thing. So I can see why that kind of food environment might produce the perfect wine to go with it. So that's Malbec. Cabernet Franc adds usually firmer tannins. If you remember tannins from yesterday, I was saying this kind of film resin that coats the top of your mouth and your teeth, a bit like sort of tea that's been left to brew. It has that sort of slightly bitter but earthy taste to it. So firmer tannins mean that that Cabernet Franc can usually age longer. So if you start off with very soft tannins, sometimes that means the wine can't age or develop that well. But if you start off with firmer tannins and they lose some of that kind of, that grip, they become more soft, more silky, and it gives the wine a sort of a depth as the bottle age goes on. Which is why I'm interested that it's a 2023, because both Malbec and Cabernet can age, and the two together, that says aging potential to me. Not always, but that's kind of, what I might get from it initially. So it's quite a young vintage. I'm just bearing that in mind. The combination of Malbec and Cabernet Franc is mostly popular in Argentina and South Africa. The both two wine producing regions have really kind of, nailed that particular combination. But it has appeared, to my recollection, in Bordeaux in the past. Not hugely, but it does exist. Now, I just wanted to say something about this marriage, right? This is very much a marriage of what I would describe as complementary opposites. Yeah. So Malbec brings deep, dark, rich fruit, and Cabernet Franc would bring more lively, juicy red fruit. So you have the two, which is quite an interesting combination because often in a lot of red wine, it's not always one or the other. It can be other things, but a lot of time it's one or the other that the producer's going for. So to combine them, that is quite interesting to me. So let us explore the wine, gentle viewers, a little bit more. Let's look at that color. I'm going to try not to pour it all over my laptop. That would be an expensive mistake. All in the name of viticultural exploration. I'll try and sell that to the insurer. So it is a deep, dark, luscious, viscous red. Oh, it's complex. I can just tell. Um, Now, I'm not going to go off too much on a tangent, but it's giving like vampire scene. It's giving Drinking Blood. If you're into that whole interview, the vampire Anne Rice kind of shtick. But it is beautiful. There's also a sort of lustrousness to it. It's kind of maybe it's harder to see on camera, but it has a sort of like I don't know what the right word is, but it's deep and dark. You know when you have those sorts of those kind of dark, sort of almost tarry pools, and they're so deep and viscous, you look into them, you can see a reflection. It's a bit like that actually. Um, Maybe I'll call it the wine of Narcissus. Um, anyway, moving on before we get the therapist involved. Um, it looks beautiful to me. I'm actually quite bewitched by it. So I'm going to go in for the nose, right? So just bear with me. Do you know that's interesting? The immediate scent that I get is candied something. I need to smell more just to kind of allow my brain to adjust to it. Okay, so I'm getting a hint of cassis. So, cassis is essentially blackcurrant based juice and syrup. So I would say it's giving that kind of that sort of sweet cassis with something candied. It smells like it's hard to sort of convince people of this, but it genuinely it smells of like. You know those kind of candied nuts you get around Christmas? You go into like a Christmas market, you're walking through, inevitably you'll have some, expensive but nice tasting candied nuts. It's got that. It's got like cassis candied nuts and an earthiness to it as well. Kind of like a sort of a warm sand baked beach kind of scent, but you know the kind of volcanic sand, the sort of darker sand. You can maybe find it in the Canaries. That kind of warm sun baked sand with candied nuts and this sort of jubilant cassis. I would say it's actually more restrained on the nose than I was expecting, despite the decanting, despite the swirling. I'm obviously able to detect those three key things, but it's not quite as punchy as I might have expected from a New World blend. But that's interesting in and of itself. And it's good to be different, as we saw yesterday again with the people de Pinet and the Merlot Mellow. That was also very interesting. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to assess it as what you've all come for the tasting. That's beautiful. Oh, guys, I'm going to be honest. For a young wine, particularly a young blended wine, to have like a certain level of suggestiveness on the palate, but then to be so express on the bouquet, but then to be so expressive on the palate. I see why this man has won multiple awards for his wines. This is something interesting. The body, it's medium bodied, but it has a certain sense of punching above its weight, despite the weight in the mouth. It feels, as I said, viscous, but it feels voluptuous in the best possible way. It's absolutely delicious. And now I'm going to go in for my second taste and give you a little bit more of the notes that I'm picking out on the palate. I'm definitely getting the cassis follow through quite strongly on the palate. Not quite as many varied dark, rich fruits as I would expect from something that had a predominant Malbec blend, but it's young. And the cassis is very prominent, which is delicious. This would pair, well, I'll go on to that in a minute, but this would probably pair very well, I want to say, with like a darker game meat, like duck. Maybe not pheasant, but probably something like duck. I'm imagining, you know how duck can sometimes be done very well with like a sort of a dark fruit sauce. This would be an absolute perfect accompaniment. Um, and now I'm going to go in just to see if I can describe anything else, or if I can describe the tannins. The tannins are firm, which is the Cabernet Franc. They haven't mellowed very much. It is coating my mouth a lot. Acidity is medium plus, like reasonably high. Not unpleasant. I would say I really enjoy this wine, but actually, the two reasons, other than the bouquet, I really enjoy this wine, is it has that deep, rich cassis follow through, but it's also so elegant in the mouth. It's elegant in a way that I would expect if it was a very well produced old world wine. So clearly, brewer knows what he's doing. Um, if only he'd gone into beer, then he could be, brewer brewery, or brewer, or brewers brews, or something like that. Maybe he'll set up a sideline. Who knows? But he doesn't need to, because this is really decent wine, and for the price point, I think this is excellent value. If I had paid sort of £20 for this, I'd have gone, yeah, interesting. Definitely above average for that price point. Quite unique in what it does. But I can't help but feel this needs to age a little bit more. I can't help but feel that. It might not be a wine that brewer has necessarily designed for aging, but I wonder whether this could be tweaked to get some bottle age on it into a different bottle, or whether the bottle itself, leave it 5, maybe 10 years, it would develop even more rich red fruit, and the bouquet would be even more, kind of well developed. But it's a decent wine. I'm enjoying it. The vibes. Okay, the vibes are this. If the Sauvignon that we tasted earlier today was the sort of slightly precocious younger sister, this is the knows who she is, still developing, but talented aunt or older sister. The one that might not get necessarily quite as much as the initial praise, but really is a rising star and a fantastically well-rounded individual. Um, I really appreciate this wine. The vibe is fun but sophisticated at the same time. And I'm going to be honest, that is a hard line to straddle. Often wine is either fun or sophisticated, and nary the twain shall meet. Sometimes they do, and when they do, you have good alchemy in that glass. So here's to you, brewer. Genuinely impressed with this Malbec Cabernet Franc. Okay, guys, so final thoughts on the two bottles of wine that I've tried. So the first one being Mussel Pot, which is a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, and the second being the Raats Malbec Cabernet Franc blend from South Africa. Mussel pot, reasonable Sauvignon Blanc, certainly as priced as it is on Laithwaite's website, which is £9.74. I think if you go for a mix of six or more, it's something like £7 something. That is a true steal. This is a decent archetypal Sauvignon Blanc that is well made. Is it going to knock your socks off? No, but for the price point, I think it's excellent. The Rats. Gonna be honest, absolutely love this. Coming back for seconds and thirds, definitely gonna buy it. Worthwhile. I would say I would love to see and explore some more of his wine, particularly maybe some of his more aged wine. But this is definitely worth it. And yet again, I don't like, I'm not sure I should be like, oh, Laithwaite's one, Naked two. I've been impressed by all of them. But of all the ones I've had, of all four wines that I've had, I've actually enjoyed all four. Which at that price point, I'll be honest, it means that they're well selected because I can be quite picky as well. Um, but I think that Naked so far has impressed me the most. We don't have enough of a sample size. It's literally only been like four different wines in 2 days, and we'll be able to build up more of a picture. But I would say that at the moment, Naked, if you want to keep score, at the moment, Naked is winning by a very thin margin. Thank you so much for sharing this wine with me as we continued our journey of exploration through the rich world of wine together. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, share and subscribe, hitting the bell icon to not miss a beat in our little Christmas adventure together. It really does help the channel and make all the difference. If you have any questions or comments, please pop them in the comments section below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Have a winefully wonderful day, folks. And remember, whether the glass is half full or half empty, make sure it's a worthy vintage.